Welcome to the Daily Tanya. Today is Friday, Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first day of the month of Elul. The month of Elul, as we mentioned many times, the Melech Basada, the king, is in the field. God is close to us like a king. A king is outside of the palace in the field, accessible to everyone. The entire month we have the custom during the weekdays to sound the shofar. The shofar is something that wakes up our heart to get close to God, especially in this time when God is close to us. So this is something we should do really live when you go to a shul to hear the shofar. For those of you who didn't have the chance, I'm going to sound the shofar here, so at least we can have it here, something of the shofar. So here it goes. We have a ksiva v'chasima teva, a good gebenchria, a good year, and a Mashiach year. So today we're going to learn beginning letter 10 in Agert HaKodesh, and let's begin with tzedakah. Gedela tzedakah shemekareves es hageula. Tzedakah brings Mashiach closer, and in this letter 10, the Alter Rebbe will discuss the different levels of kindness, chesed, the attribute of kindness that God shows to us. There is the chesed oilam, the chesed, the kindness that is limited to the world, and there is the kindness that is chesed ilah, the higher level of kindness. And he's going to explain this in terms of giving tzedakah. Basically, what Alter Rebbe says, that really everything that comes from Hashem is abundant light, abundant kindness that it needs to be limited in order for us to be able to receive it. Otherwise, it's going to be too much. Like to a child, if you give him too much, too deep stuff, he's not going to be able to digest it. A baby, you feed him very limited thing. You have to limit what you give. Otherwise, he's not able to take it. So there is the same concept in the Torah that comes down, Hashem's light through the Torah, through the mitzvahs. It's all in a way limited so we can receive it. However, the Alter Rebbe is going to say later in the letter that there are certain exceptions to the rule. So let's begin. Letter 10 in Igeret HaKodesh. The Alter Rebbe begins, Achrei drishas shloimam v'chaim. After greetings of life and peace, Pesach Dvora yoyer oizen shemas techachas chaim. May my opening words rouse the ear that hears the life-giving admonition. Asher yichiach Hashem chaim al yedei neviyai va'omar chaste Hashem k'lo yisamna. The living God admonished through his prophet, saying that the kindness of God have surely not ended. So this verse, when the Alter Rebbe quotes, it says, Chazdi Hashem, the kindness of God that have not ended. And the Alter Rebbe points out that really in Hebrew, that word, that kindness of God has not ended, tamnu, should say tammu. Tamnu means we have not ended. we say every day in prayer, we say, Chaste Hashem kilei samo, God's kindness have not ended. You see, the ended without the nun. Tamu means they have not ended. Tamnu means we have not ended. So what does that mean? The kindness of God that we have not ended, what does that mean? There are different interpretations to it. What the Alter Rebbe is going to say is that Tamnu means ended, also means perfect. And he's going to say, because we are not perfect, that kilei samnu, because we are not perfect. That is why we need Chaste Hashem, the kindness of God, which will explain that there's two levels of kindness. One level of kindness that is good under normal circumstances. The other level of kindness that is necessary, the higher level of kindness is necessary when we're not perfect. Kiloi samnu. So, but we'll get there. Let's begin with the question. Says the Alter Rebbe, or it should really have said kiloi tamu. Is in the phrase, for your kindness have not ended. We say it every morning in the davening, in the Hamida prayer. Every morning, afternoon, and evening. V'yuvan zeh, so the Alter Rebbe begins the explanation. Al pi ma shekosev b'zohar HaKodesh, is chesed ve'is chesed. This anomaly will be understood in the light of the statement in the sacred Zohar that there are two different types of chesed, two different types of kindness and chesed, attribute of chesed that comes down from Hashem. Is chesed olam chulu ve'is chesed ilo du rav chesed chulu. There is chesed olam, literally means the world-like chesed, a degree of kindness which is limited by temporal bounds. Ve'is chesed ilo du rav chesed chulu. And there is a superior form of kindness, it's called Rav Chesed, boundless kindness. Since it is man's spiritual service that draws down divine beneficence, so the Alter Rebbe now goes on to explain what manner of service elicits a downflow of the chesed of the world, and what manner of service draws down the boundless degree of Rav Chesed. So the Alter Rebbe begins just first to explain this dynamics between the relationship between Hashem and us and the world, and also the way it comes through the Torah and mitzvahs, the connection that we have with God through the Torah and the mitzvahs. So when it comes to the Torah, it says, it is well known, says the Alter Rebbe, that the Torah is called oiz. Oiz means strength. Strength represents gevura, severities. We know we have the attributes of chesed, kindness, giving. Then there's the attributes of restricting, severities. Strength is more of severities. Shuloshin gevura, which is an expression of gevura. So literally gevura means might, but more specifically, as the name of one of the spheres, it signifies, in contradistinction to chesed, the withholding of beneficence as regulated by the divine attributes of stern justice. So we say that Torah is referred to as Gevura, which means the stern justice, very restrictive attribute. As our sages of blessed memory taught, and the 613 commandments were declared unto Moses at Sinai from the mouth of the Gevura. Gevura, this is in the Talmud. Gevura means the restrictions, the severities, the justice. So we see that the Torah comes from this attribute of Gevura. However, we find elsewhere that the Torah is connected with the side of the chesed, the kindness. The kindness is, chesed is on the right side, gevura is on the left side. It says kindness, the right side represents kindness, the left side represents gevura. It is likewise written, from his right hand a Torah of fire was given unto them. So meaning it was written in fire, which is an expression of the attribute of gevura. So on the one hand we say mimina comes on the right hand, which is chesed. On the other hand, we say it's fire, connected with fire, it's connected with gevura. So obviously there is here a combination of both. Just like when you do an act of kindness, let's say you see a poor man and you put your hands in your pocket, you take out and you give him money. Is this an act of kindness or is this an act of restriction, severity? Truth is, it's both. The kindness tells you to give. But yet, when you put your hand in your pocket, you judge and you restrict your giving. You're not going to give him $1,000. You're going to give him $5 or whatever you want to give the person, or $1 or a quarter, whatever. So this is the severity within the kindness. This is the restriction. The source and root of Torah is solely God's kindness that are referred to as the right hand. The Hainu, which means Amshochas Pchinas Eleikuso Yisborech Ve'aore Me'oir Ein Soif Baruch Hu. That is the elicitation of his divinity and radiance from the infinite Ein Soif light to the upper and lower worlds. The Torah that God gives us, it's not just a book of guidance telling us how to live our life. It is God himself bringing down his light, his essence he wrote in the Torah and gives it to us. When we study the Torah, we connect with Hashem himself. It is a way that Hashem wants to communicate with us, give us an ability to connect with him. How does this connection work? How does it work? This is affected by man who draws down the light upon himself. How? By doing the mitzvahs. By fulfilling the fulfillment of 248 positive commandments, which are the 248 organs of the king. Meaning, just like an organ, you have an eye, you have a nose, you have a hand. The organ represents the ability of expressing the soul. You see, the eye brings the power of sight to you, you're able to express the seeing. You smell, you draw, you do good things. This is the organs of the king. The mitzvahs are the organs of the king, meaning through the mitzvahs, we draw upon ourselves that specific energy and light that each mitzvah represents. And it's not just random different types of energy that comes, it's all together, it makes up the whole, just like a human being is made out of 248 organs. It makes up the entire picture, the full picture of the energy that comes, that God brings to us to connect with us. Meaning they have 248 vessels and garments for the radiance from the infinite Ein Sof light that is vested in them. And as is known from this light, the light that comes through the mitzvahs, awe and love are drawn down upon a person as he performs each command. So the Torah and its commandments are thus a downflow of godliness, springing from his attribute of kindness. However, that godly kindness needed to be limited, needed to be restricted. Otherwise, it would be too much for us. We're not going to be able to survive, to sustain it. However, this downflow was first vested in God's attribute of Gevura, which is referred to as fire, which reflects a contraction, a tzimtzum, of the light and life force that issue from the infinite Ein Sof light, thus enabling it to become vested in the performance of the commandments, which the performance of the commandments are done mostly with physical objects. So you have these physical objects that draw down this godly light. Practically all of which involve material things. For example, just like the tzitzis, which are made of wool, the tefillin that we wear, which is made of leather and parchment, the offering of the sacrifice in the temple, which is animals, plants, and minerals, and tzedakah, charity that we give, money, material objects. So those are limited physical objects. Those are mitzvahs that draw down the godly light in a limited way. Not only physical objects, certain mitzvahs that are done more have a spiritual way of fulfilling the mitzvahs, just like the mitzvahs of fear of God and love of God, those are also limited. Even commandments that involve men's spirit, just as awe and love of God, they're also of limited measure and by no means of infinite extent. Meaning, the love that you have to Hashem is limited. If you have an unlimited love to God, that love will make you expire your soul from your body, just like it happened to the children of Aaron. When they had such great love, the body couldn't contain it. So it has to be limited. For not for even for one moment, could the man sustain in his heart so intense a love of God as is without end and limitation, and still remain in existence in his body. And Alter Rebbe brings the example what happened with the Jewish people when they received the Torah on the Mount Sinai. The first 2 commandments they heard directly from Hashem. It was such intense love that was revealed to them, and indeed they did not survive it. And after each commandment they heard, the first 2, they died, and God had to revive them. K'mayma Razal, שבשעת מתן תורה שויס יסגלוס אלוקוס יסברך ואויר סוף ברוך הוא בבחינת דיבור ויסגלוס פוך נשמס וכו'. So it was taught by our sages of blessed memory, it says from the Talmud and Shabbat, that at the time of the giving of the Torah, when God's divinity and the infinite Ein Sof light were manifested to the Jews at Sinai, at the direct level of revealed speech, their soul took flight from their bodies. And God had to revive them. So we're going to continue also tomorrow's lesson of Shabbat. Continues the Alter Rebbe and says, V'hinei, לפי שהמצוות ניתנו לנו על ידי סלפשוס ומידס גבורה וצמצום האור החולו, לכן רוב המצוות יש להם שיר מצומצם. It says, now because the commandments were given to us by being vested in the attribute of Gevura, the restriction, and by contraction of the divine radiance, most commandments have the limited measure. The mitzvahs every mitzvah has a certain measure, how much you do. A matzah, you eat matzah, a certain amount of matzah. But the Alter Rebbe brings other examples. For instance, the length of the tzitzis must be 12 times the width of the thumb. That's the minimum. Vatfilin etzba'im el etzba'im, that tefillin 2 fingers breadth by 2 fingers breadth, according to the opinion of the Gaonim quoted in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Umeruboy is dafke, and they must be square. Ve'alulav talet tfachim, ve'asukkah zayin tfachim. The lulav has to have 4 handbreadths. The sukkah 7 handbreadths. Ve'ashayfer tefach. The shayfer must have a tefach. Ma'mikveh memse'ah. The mikveh where we immerse in the water has to have 40 se'ah, certain liquid measurement. So every mitzvah has its limits and measurements. And the same thing is also when we talk about the mitzvahs in the offering of the sacrifices in the temple. The sacrifices too, they have the limited measure as regards age. They have to be on a certain age, the animals. As for instance, sheep of 1 year old and rams of 2 years and oxen, etc. The same thing says the Alter Rebbe also when it comes to the giving tzedakah. How much should one give tzedakah? So the Torah says a good measure, a generous measure is 20%. An average measure is 10%. The same applies to the act of charity and to the practice of kindness with one's money. Even though that is one of the pillars upon which the world stands, the kindness, the tzedakah, as it is written, the world is built by chesed. Nevertheless, as the Alter Rebbe, it still has limits. Nevertheless, it has the measure of preferably 1/5 of one's income if one desires to perform the commandment in the best possible manner. Which, by the way, it is, as we mentioned many times, this is one of the mitzvahs that Hashem says you can test me when you give tzedakah. Hashem pays the person many times over. And 1/10 for an average measure. Now this is what is called the chesed of the world, meaning the supernal degree of chesed that is drawn down through this manner of measured charity is termed chesed olam, the chesed of the world, which means a chesed that God brings down into this world according to its needs. Pirush chesed keil kol hayom, this means the chesed of God that endures throughout the day, which vested itself, is vested in the higher and the lower world. How? Through the arousal from below that is generated by men's service. We need to do our part in order to bring down this chesed down to us. And that is the tzedakah that we gave. In mitzvot tzedakah v'chesed shoysim b'nei adam zeim zeh. This is by the precepts of charity and kindness that people practice for each other. Kindness between man and his fellow draws down divine kindness into the higher and the lower worlds. And now, and again, because the world is a limited world, that is why the kindness that we do also has limits. However, because the world is finite and measured, from earth to heaven, there is a distance of 500 years, and likewise from one heaven to another, there's a distance of 500 years. And 6,000 years shall the world exist. Everything is limited. לכן ניתן שיר ומידה גם כן למצוות הצדקה והחסד שבתורה. The Torah's commandment of charity and kindness is also given a limited measure. As are other commandments of the Torah. So this is to elicit the ordinary chesed. And on Sunday, we'll go on to here to learn and understand that there is also the exception when we need the higher level of kindness. This is the end of today's shir and Shabbat, the shir of Shabbos. A wonderful Shabbos, a wonderful HaKodesh, and a ksiva v'chasima teva. All the best.